Hi, I often do film reviews, but for this video, I want to talk about a specific scene in a film. Now, a bit of a disclaimer here: I can't talk in great depth about any specific characters of the film because I haven't seen it in full. And the film is Small Faces. It's a 1996 film, and it is set in Glasgow in the 1960s, specifically around the Tongland, so-called Tongland. Gangland, which I believe was Govan, somewhere around Govan. I'm not 100% sure about that. In fact, I'll just use my other laptop right now, if you just bear with me a second, to be precise about this. But it's a very powerful scene. Bear with me a second. Um, there's actually a hamlet just outside Kirkcudbright in southwest Scotland, also called Tongland, so not to be confused with that. Yeah, it's actually the local name for Calton, the area of Calton in Glasgow, um, because of the gang warfare that went on there in the 60s. I say warfare loosely. Glasgow is a notoriously violent city, and back then it was particularly bad. So Small Faces comes from the band The Small Faces. I can't say much about the film. I just know it's about the gang culture there. So this one scene, I don't know who any of the characters are specifically, um, but basically it shows a group of girls, young women, gathered at sort of the corner of a street, and there's a young man walking down the street. Again, I can't say who any of these people are. I haven't seen the full film. If you're familiar with the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I will be putting a link in that so you can see for yourself. So the girls say there's going to be a big fight in Tongland, and why is he not involved? And they start basically badgering this guy. And he's just minding his own business, he's just walking down the street. And they start pushing him around. And at one point he says he doesn't fight with girls. And these girls are kind of tough girls, trying to, as we would say today, ladettes, but that term wasn't really around in the 60s. Um, so that really sets them off. They get very angry and they push him against a wall and start verbally berating him. Then things get quite disturbing because the gang appears from the background. This isn't like a high street. This is sort of within this neighborhood, and the gang members just lay into the guy. About five of them. They just kind of get him on the ground and stump him. And the girl who initially called them over then starts to realize what she's done, and she starts to tell them to lay off, and one of the other girls kind of mutters not to bother. So basically, yeah, it's a disturbing scene, and I think it shows powerful filmography. The film did get critical acclaim. It was compared to Trainspotting, in fact, in terms of its its filmography standards. It's not as famous as Trainspotting, certainly not that well known outside Scotland, but it's a disturbing scene. And the thing is, this is obviously fictional, right? They're all actors, but it's that sort of gritty realism that I find sometimes makes for powerful filmography. I watched last night Harold Shipman, Dr. Death, played by the Sunderland actor James Bolam. Very good production, but not to derail. I think sometimes gritty realism, particularly for British actors, I think we have a very strong heritage in this country of that sort of gritty realism because there's no special effects, there's no sort of overdone Hollywood props or anything. It just is what it is. And when I mentioned earlier that I had personal experiences with crime, that I didn't go through something like that specifically, but I had some echoes of my own experience. So that's why I found it disturbing watching this. I had a situation I mentioned with the snowball thing where the gang crowded around me, and it could have been a lot worse. But um, it just shows a few things. It shows the sadistic nature of gangs, the total lack of any sort of human empathy, and also the fact that some girls, young women, can be just as sociopathic and violent as guys. I mean, they weren't laying into the young guy here, but they prompted the incident and they encouraged it, which to me is disgusting. So to me, the scene really encapsulates the nature of gangs, and this is set in Glasgow, but it could easily be Liverpool or Newcastle or any other big British city. I mean, yeah, Glasgow had a specific problem, but every city has its housing estate, its rough areas, and check it out. But I will warn you, it's quite a disturbing scene. It will piss you off. You know, it pissed me off when I first saw it because I'm thinking my anger was more actually towards the women, not for sexist reasons, but because they provoked it. They encouraged the situation, and then feminists say that women shouldn't go to prison. You know, Jo Swinson. She needs to watch that scene, and yeah, it's fictional, but it's based on the sort of things that did happen in Tongland in the 60s. So powerful filmography. Anyway, check it out. But I'll warn you, it is quite unsettling. At least I found it so, and you end up feeling disgust at the girls for kind of not only for provoking the incident, but the callous lack of regard for the victim. And as for the male thugs, they're just vermin. You know, they're just shows the sadistic nature of gangs. Total cardos. But I'll just say this in closing. One thing about all gangs is they think it's a passage to manhood. I think that gang members need to be told that they are cards. You know, there needs to be a big emphasis on the cardus of gangs. I really do believe that because you know, it's not good enough to just punish them for the violence, but actually they need to be told that they're cards. And in this particular scene, the gang leader actually doesn't take part. He kind of stands there watching it, so you see that he's the authority figure. He controls it. Very disturbing scene, but very powerful. Check it out. And I'll put a link directly under this. I'd seen it a few years ago, but whether it was re-uploaded or something, I don't know. There's a full version of the film, and I scrolled the whole way through it, and I couldn't see it. So whether this was a deleted scene or not, I don't know. But check it out. Put the link under this.